Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you, Suman.
Yes, yes, hi.
Shall we start?
Yes, yes, we can start.
Can you brief about yourself?
Yes, so this is Suman. Basically, I have 4 years of experience as a DevOps engineer. So, in this DevOps, in these 4 years, I have worked on different tools like for source code management, I have used Git and GitLab Bitbucket, and for build tools, I have used Maven and CI/CD purpose Circle CI, and we have used AWS native application services and Jenkins as well. And in containerized applications, I have expertise on Docker, Kubernetes, and for one of the project also we have implementing OpenShift as well. So we have in cloud perspective, I have and worked extensively on AWS. I have worked on different services in AWS. So and I have worked on like a different couple of monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana IFK. So this is pretty much about me.
Okay. Did you work on an Anvil?
I forgot to mention I worked on Ansible. Yes.
Okay. How good you are in Anvil?
Yes, so many of the projects, so we have got requirements on Ansible as well. So I was involved in many of the Ansible tasks. So I can, so if you give any task, I can do it right away. So I have good experience in Ansible as well.
Okay. Uh, have you written any Ansible playbooks?
Yes, yes, some custom playbooks have written.
Tell me some use cases and what playbooks you have written.
Like the the Ansible, like we can use Ansible for many purposes like infrastructure provisioning, configuration management, and continuous delivery and application deployment. So in that we have I have used the application the Ansible for application deployment and application deployment and automation purposes. So by using Ansible Tower, we have did some automation, and we automate the application lifecycle from development to production. So from um, we have we have used this Ansible to automate from end to end application development to production.
Yeah, okay. How can you check whether particular package is installed or not by using Ansible?
Okay, like so for that we have some ad hoc commands, like we can check by using like Ansible, so host name, like if at all we want to check in all Ansible all hyphen m shell the package name and hyphen version. So it will, if at all, if the package version has been written, so that we can get to know that the particular version, the particular package has been installed. So for example, if we want to check particular git is installed has been installed or not, so we can check like Ansible all hyphen m shell hyphen a package equal to like the package git hyphen version, so that it will the Ansible will check in all the host machines. mm, so like git version, so it will check all the version all the host machines as a git hyphen version. So if it has git has been installed, so it will return the version of the git. So like by using some ada commands, and by using some playbooks also, we can we can get the work done.
Okay, what is the difference between package and shell modules?
Okay, the package module works like works in all the Linux distributions as a repository manager. Like it works like yum apt modules, and shell module is like it's a idempotent. So like if at all we want to install any particular application, we by using shell. So like it so it will install that particular application twice. So shell is like idempotent. The package model is like it works on all the Linux distributions.
Okay, what are Ansible tasks?
Basically, some action which we want to perform on host machine, all the tasks will be executed by default from top to bottom, it will use the Ansible model to write the tasks.
Okay. Um, then what are the handlers in Ansible?
Okay, it's like, it's a special kind of task, so these won't execute by default, basically. So like, if some some task want to notify, and if some task has notified the handler, if the task is if the task is modified, then only the handler will be executed. The handler will be executed at the end of the playbook. Like, we have, like, some application, Tomcat application. In the Tomcat application, we want to write some, we want to write that, we want to start that particular Tomcat if at all there is any change in web apps folder. So in that case, we can use handlers.
Okay. I want to install a particular package. How can you install by using Ansible?
Yes, yes. So as we are discussing, like, we can use shell model, or like, we can use APT model. We can use APT model if at all the host machines are, the host instances are Ubuntu. Like, we can use a yum model if the Linux, if the host machines are on top of Linux host machines. So if at all we want to, if in our host machines we have different OS, OSS, like distributions of Linux, so we can use.
Hello?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me? Hello.
Actually, I can hear you, but some disturbance is there, I think.
Okay, okay. Yes, as I said, like, you can hear me, right? Right now, is it okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah, yeah, fine.
as I was saying, like, we can use a shell model and package model. We can use yum model. We can use APT model. So it's like, Ansible all yum, the package or shell, in the place of package, we can use shell. We can use APT. We can use yum, and name is a parameter, and we have to pass the value of the parameter, like, the package name, and the state is like present or remove present. So if the state is present, it will install the package. If the state is absent, it will remove the particular package from the host machines.
Okay. Can you brief about Ansible working architecture?
Okay, so the Ansible has a couple of different modules in it. So it has host inventory, it has users, and it has, many connection plugins, and it has playbooks, and it has core models and custom models and plugins. So in a host inventory, like, the host can be anything. So what are all the applications, what are all the servers we want to monitor? These are all the host inventories. Like, it could be, Tomcat, it could be any normal server. So the host inventory is like what are the list of the servers we want to do the some automation. And we have in host inventory, it will hold all the details of the host machines, like, it holds all the IP addresses, passwords, and something like. And in host inventory, we have static inventory and we have dynamic inventory. So static inventory, it's like, it's a file, so in which we are going to list all the group host details in the default location, like, /etc/ansible host. So the dynamic inventory, it's like, it's a script, basically the Python script, so which will fetch host details from the external sources, like AWS or, databases or something like that. So if our so for some of the project I have used dynamic inventory, and some of the project I have used static inventory. Like if our so for big
Okay.
organ so for For big organization I go with the dynamic inventory. For small organization I go with static inventory. And in connection plugins we have like SSH plugin for Linux based instances. We have WinRM plugins for Windows based instances, and we have playbooks. So playbooks are like the AML based scripts. And we have core models. So the core models are like default models, so we want to install any Ansible. We have some custom models. So the custom models are like we the models which we are like we need to write in by Python or something like by scripting. So basically
Okay.
it will does the automation on the host missions by getting the information from the host inventory. Although this is basic
Okay.
architecture as of now, but in like we have like the Ansible tower is there, like we have some like Ansible Galaxy also there. So in that perspective the architecture may differ a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Uh,
Yes, actually, in my
what
first
was?
round,
Yeah. Tell me.
actually, in my first round, actually,
Yeah.
what kind of role you are exactly looking? As a JD, I found that it is for Kubernetes and Docker CI/CD. Even the first round, also the client, the manager said like it could be on Docker Kubernetes role, something like that. So I just wonder like what what exactly what is JD and what exactly you're looking for. I just wonder.
Actually, the thing is, Suman,
Okay.
we have many clients.
Okay.
Actually, they have different requirements also.
Okay.
See for which profile you are suitable for.
Okay. Okay.
That's why we are taking this much of interview like this.
Okay. Okay.
What
Yes. Yes.
was your roles in Kubernetes part?
Okay. In like so actually I had like many tasks. I have worked extensively on Kubernetes for the last 1.5 year. So in that I was from creating cluster and deploying containers onto EKS cluster and troubleshooting the cluster, and pods, cluster and pods, and monitoring the cluster by using Prometheus and Grafana. And like also we have like storing the logs of the the cluster by using Fluentd and Elastic Stack and Kibana. So I have done basically end to end um, you know in Kubernetes basically.
Okay. How can you create a Kubernetes cluster?
Okay, so for one of the project we were asked to create a EKS cluster, and some other project we were asked to create some on-premise application, on-premise Kubernetes cluster. So the installation process for EKS cluster we have used EKSCTL. So for that we need to install EKSCTL on our mission, and AWS CLI and kubectl we need to install. And so like in EKS way just we can create EKS create cluster hyphen the region and VPC and how many notebooks we want to specify, so that EKSCTL will create a cloud formation template in it, and the stack will create and AWS cloud formation will create the stack, and it will create the AWS EKS cluster for us. And we can create the AWS EKS cluster in management console as well. So for the management console we need to just go to the management console and search for EKS, and we just need to create the cluster, and we need to add all the node groups, and we need to specify what kind of what kind of in which region we want to create the cluster, and in which VPC, which subnets, and we need to select all those things. And we will get some uh, you know some other options as well. And after that we need to add the node groups to the cluster. So and we can specify minimum and maximum number of clusters, so that it will do some cluster auto scaling as well. uh, this part is like EKS cluster installation, a cluster configuration part. And in on-premise cluster
Okay.
we
Okay.
have managed the the worker nodes and the master node. So although it is the installation path, for that we need to install Docker for containerization, and we have installed by using KubeDM way. uh, so it is
Okay.
goes like that.
That's good. That's good enough, Suman.
Okay.
Okay. What was your roles in AWS cloud, and which access do you have?
Yes, hello. Like so we have many applications. For some of the projects I have admin access, admin full access, and some of the projects I have only read only access. The two for only some limited application, limited resources. So the scope is the scope is varies from application to application. So the roles is from creating EC2, from creating VPCs and configuration route tables, and the route 53. And one of the project we have actually migrated the DNS server from GoDaddy to our route 53 as well. So the roles are we are getting different roles, and I have worked on RDS and Lambda and EC2 and ELB storages. Basically I worked on different services.
Okay. What are all monitoring tools you worked on?
Monitoring tool, especially since I worked on Kubernetes, I have worked on Prometheus and Grafana. For logging purpose, I have used EFK and with the EFK stack with Fluentd.
Okay. Okay. What does Prometheus and EFK do?
Okay, basically the Prometheus monitor the overall CPU. So Prometheus with Grafana will let us know uh, what is the workload on our cluster, what is our application, what is the incoming traffic, and what is the the CPU and RAM utilization, and what is the node capacity, and how much RAM and how much peak load is going on, incoming traffic. It will let us know by using Grafana. So Grafana has some visual dashboards. So it will let us know like if any load on the our cluster and application, and nodes and pods. So it will let us know. And the EFK is it will get the logs of the application, and it will store into some S3 or some any application. So EFK stack is for logging purpose, and Prometheus is for monitoring the application cluster and monitoring purpose basically.
Okay. Okay. In a monitoring perspective,
Okay.
I want to pull only particular kind of metrics
Okay.
from nodes. Can I do that?
Okay, you want to pull only particular particular metrics, right?
Right.
Okay. uh,
Right.
okay, actually we have by default we have uh, in Prometheus we have node exporter, and there is another node exporter called C advisor exporter. So by using that and by using some automation perspective, we can get it done. But I did not work on that part. But I gave it a read once in blog. So we can do it. We can we can restrict to some metrics, and we can get only particular metrics. But uh, I did not work on it.
Oh, okay. How good you are in Terraform? Do
Yes,
you have any exposure with Terraform?
yes. I worked on Terraform. I worked with Terraform as well.
Okay.
For if,
Okay.
so for different services like VPC, RDS, and ELB, DNS, and EKS also, I did some POC to to create a EKS cluster by using Terraform. So I have worked on Terraform as well.
Okay. How many providers you are worked on?
Mainly I worked on with the AWS only. So although Terraform supports many providers, but I worked on AWS.
Okay. Okay then. For some reason, I lost my state.tf file
Okay.
and I applied Terraform. What will happen?
Okay. So Basically Terraform will create the provider resource again. As Terraform always compare code from init and the code in state tf.state file. So if we delete the state file, the Terraform thinks that this is the first time it is executing. So the Terraform init the Terraform when we apply the Terraform apply, so so with the given resources, it will recreate the resources in AWS or whatever the provider we are using. So to avoid this, we are recommended to store tf.state file in S3 bucket with versioning enabled. So
Okay. Which SCM you use it for a Terraform code?
as a best practice, we store terraform.tf file in Terraform backend.
Okay. Then for what are all the AWS providers you wrote IAC?
Yes, as I told earlier, like for VPC, RDS, ELB, DNS, EKS, um, for many of the services, 10 to 15 services, I try to work on. I try to create the IAC.
Okay, what are the main differences between Ansible and Terraform you find?
Okay. So Ansible works, Ansible it works better as a configuration management tool. It's better for automation tasks like deployments and configuration on top of infra. So once we have infra, so on that we want to do some automation, we want to do some configuration changes. Ansible is the best tool to work with. Whereas the Terraform works better as a infra as a code IAC. So it's a dedicated language. It has a dedicated language called HashiCorp language. So it has a large number of providers acquainted with. So uh, so basically in short form, Terraform works better as a infrastructure as code. Uh, Ansible works as a configuration tool and automation tool.
That's all.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, can I use Ansible for IAC?
uh, as the feature suggested, we can use an Ansible as a IAC, but it's not recommended. We have simple and effective tools like to create IAC, like Terraform. Yes, although we can create, but it's not. So most of the people use Terraform, right?
Okay, okay. Okay. What PVC and storage class in Kubernetes? Explain thoroughly. Can you explain?
Yes, PV, persistent
Hello?
value. Yes, 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 yes. PV, it's piece of persistent
Yeah.
value. It's like a piece of
Okay.
storage. So piece of storage allocated for in the cluster. Like PVC is claim for the value in the storage. So so PVC is claiming the value. So PV is creating a volume in a static way. So the storage class is a dynamic way of creating the PV in the cluster. So we have PVC. If we have PVC, then if we have storage class, then the value will be allocated automatically. So we don't need to create one more PV YAML file, manifest file, and to allocate PV for the PVC. So if we have PVC and PVC, then there is no SC. We need to write PV extensively. So there should be the PV should be must allocate some value it. So the storage class is like a software. So it will allocate the value for the PVC. So PV is like static class. So in our EKS cluster, we have the storage class called EBS provisioner. So it works as a storage class. So there is no need of creating a PV. This EBS provisioner will take care of the volumes whenever the PVC is requesting volume. The storage class, this particular EBC provisioner will take care of its request, and it will allocate the volume for it. Hello, I'm audible.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can hear. What is affinity and what is taint and what is tolerance?
Yes. So affinity and taint and tolerance works in the same way. Like, if at all the particular node want to schedule on, sorry, if at all a particular node pod need to schedule on the node or not. So by using affinity and taint and tolerance, we can specify like. Uh, should a pod need to schedule on a particular node or not. So like in affinity we have like a preferred during scheduling, ignore during execution, required during scheduling, and ignore during execution. So these are like soft limit and hard limits. We have these are the outcome values of in affinity. So in taint is a property of pod actually, so that it has to tolerate when if a pod need to schedule on node. So it has some values as well,
Okay.
like it has no schedule and no effect parameters. So like if it all it is the parameter is the Kubernetes operator is like no schedule, the pod will not schedule on this that particular node. And if at all it is no effect, so it will uh, it's like a soft limiter. So both are works in the same way, but soft limit and software and hardware, so that's the basic difference.
Okay. Nice. Good answer. Yeah. Okay. Can I schedule pod in master?
Yes, we can, but it need to allow the pods on it, but it's not recommended to schedule pods on node by using, like, if at all that taint and tolerance is allowing the pod to schedule on this particular master node. We can we can schedule on the master as well, but it's not recommended.
Okay. What are minions?
Yeah, minions
Do
are
you have
like.
an idea?
Yes, yes. Minions are like, the worker missions in the Kubernetes clusters called alias name as minions.
Okay. Good. Uh, what is kube proxy and what is CNI?
Yes, the Q proxy is like, one of the component in the master, so worker nodes. So the Q proxy is responsible for all the networking related things in the uh, uh, nodes. So it's basically a networking job. And the CNI is like, CNI stands for container network interface. So the Kubernetes uses CNI as an interface between the network providers, Kubernetes pod networking. Like CNI uses for pod to pod communication. Every pod has its own IP address. So the pod in one node want to talk to the another pod. So CNI is responsible for pod to pod communication. To implement CNI, we have different tools like, like Calico, Flannel, and WeaveNet. So so CNI is like container network. So pod to pod communication. It does basic thing.
Okay. Have you worked on STO?
Yes, yes, I worked on STO for one of the big applications. So we got the requirement to have, to handle the traffic between all the microservices. We were asked to implement STO. So we implemented it. It does basic load balancing and part to part communication and basic security and
Okay.
traffic management purpose. We have used STO.
Okay. That's enough. In Can you explain in a broader perspective? Tell me why we should go for containers.
Yes, so containers, the word container, it's like it holds all the application code in it, and the required required libraries. So when we create any application by using containers, like containers, so this can run on any infrastructure, and So like we will uh, mm, so like we can avoid many problems uh, like earlier days, like so the application works on in dev environment and it won't works on a QA environment. There are some changes in dev environment and these changes are not configured same in QA environment. If at all we go for containers, so the same all the changes will be given. So if I use Tomcat version 8 in dev environment, so if I use some other Tomcat version in Q environment, so there is some ambiguity. See, there is some compatibility, version compatibility. So in containers, like so if I use if I if I containerize the application by using Docker or anything, so it will preserve all the versions, and it will get the like it will has the application and its dependencies on it. So we can move around all these containers from one environment to another environment very easily. So if you want to change anything also, we can do and we can do it by changing things in the Docker files, like by using by changing the Alpine images, or like by changing the base images. So it's
Okay, okay.
portable and migration easy.
Yeah, okay, that's enough, Suman. Can you explain K8 architecture?
Yes, Kubernetes. So in Kubernetes, we have two things, like two components, master node and worker node. In master, we have APS version, scheduler, and etcd control manager. So the APS server acts as a front end, and it talks to the kubectl. So the kubectl sends the commands to the API server, so it will get the data from the etcd. Etcd is etcd. It acts as a data store, and it has all the key values about pods and nodes, and what are all the containers and labels and selected data in it. Etcd stores, and we have a scheduler. So the scheduler is responsible for scheduling the pods and the nodes, and we have control manager. So control manager is like it's responsible for replication controller, node controller, and many controlling jobs. And all these components run on top of containerization day. So container runtime, it could be Docker container D or Docker or Archit, anything. And in worker nodes also, we have container runtime, and we have kubelet and kubeproxy. So the kubelet is like its agent, and it takes the instruction from the controller and scheduler, and it follow accordingly. And the kubelet is responsible for whether given number of pods are live or not. It checks, and it sends the instructions to the scheduler. And the queue proxy is like it does a basic networking job, networking routing job.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine, Suman. Okay, I done with the technical interview. Okay.
Okay.
Mm, Suman, who is your reporting manager?
Mr. Madhusudan.
Okay. Where is your office in Hyderabad?
Okay, high tech city, Raheja Mindspace, floor number building number 10, and floor number 6th.
Okay. Okay. If you get this an offer,
Okay.
how how soon you can join?
Like we have a 30 days official notice period. Like let's see, like so although currently I'm on bench, so if I get an offer, like I'll try to join immediately. So the notice period would be negotiable, only negotiable. One of my colleague has relieved within 10 days after he resigned. So maybe I will join in 10 days, I guess. It's a negotiable.
Are you sure?
Yes, yes. Currently, actually, I'm on the bench. We don't have any active projects. So, like till March, we don't have any active projects as our project manager and conveyed. So, if till March, we can this notice period thing will be negotiable. And
Okay. Okay, Suman. All the best for your future. Okay. If you got selected,
Okay.
the HR will update you the further proceedings.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Shravan. Okay.
Do you have any questions or ask?
So is this for which location? I told like I don't have any. I have only JD. I thought it's for Pune or Bangalore, I guess.
Okay, which location you are up for?
So this, since this is remote work, I am ready for anywhere. But so I'm just looking for Bangalore or Hyderabad.
For now, it's a remote work only.
Okay.
We are looking for an candidate for a Bangalore location as well as Hyderabad location also.
Okay, that's great. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Suman.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Shravan. Thank you. Thanks for your time.